All right, so getting up there now. We're doing temperance. 14th key, temperance. And this one is, like I said, remember, as we climb up the tree, things begin to get a little bit more involved. Because remember, what we talked about before, the higher up the tree the tarot cards reside on, the more implicit the other cards are inside of them and the more powerful they get. So remember, it's an unfolding story. And so what I wanted to do here is start with Crowley's card, because Lon-Malo Duquette doesn't really go too much into this, but it's called Art in Crowley's deck. And let's get into what they have to say. So this is the daughter of the reconcilers, the bringer forth of life, corresponding with the zodiacal trump of Sagittarius, which Jupiter rules, the dragon's tail exalted. And its original design is the figure of Diana, the huntress, a winged and crowned goddess with flashing golden belt, stands and pours from her right hand the flame of a torch upon an eagle, while from her left hand she pours water from an urn upon a lion. Between her feet is a moon-shaped cauldron of silver, smoking with perfume. The Hebrew letter, according to Crowley, that it corresponds with the Samek, which represents serpent. And the tree of life path is the path 25, joining Tifereth, which is beauty, to Yesod, the foundation. Here's a little poem from Crowley. Pour thine all freely from the vase in thy right hand, and lose no drop. Hath not thy left hand a vase? Transmute all wholly into the image of thy will, bringing each to its token of perfection. Dissolve the pearl in the wine cup, drink and make manifest the virtue of that pearl. And here is a corresponding letter from Lady Harris to Crowley. Date uncertain in 1939. Temperance is a kettle of fish. And she says, Sagittarius, I guess that's all she said to him was, temperance is a kettle of fish. They don't even know the date, but interesting. So Sagittarius means the archer. The traditional image of this card is that of Diana the huntress. We see echoes of this original theme in the two bows near the top of the card and the tiny upward pointing arrow rising in the rainbow fumes of the cauldron. The celebrated Diana of Ephesus is portrayed in statuaries having many breasts. The deeply plunging neckline on the dress of the art card's main figure reveals 3 columns of neatly stacked breasts reminiscent of the famous Ephesian statue of Diana. With these exceptions, the Sagittarian imagery is almost completely smothered in alchemical symbolism, and after all, as Crowley points out, quote, this card represents the consummation of the royal marriage which took place in a 2-6, and art is the coagula to the lover's salve. So also in this card, the white tincture of the Empress is united with the red tincture of the Emperor. Now, you'll learn as you go up the tree in Crowley's deck that the Magus, the Empress, and the Emperor represent the alchemical elements of mercury, salt, and sulfur. And you'll also learn that these 3 principles, when combined and perfectly balanced, create the universal solvent vitriol. And Lon-Malo Duquette goes on to say, what we haven't as yet learned is what to do with our vitriol. Just what are we supposed to dissolve it with? I guess the simplest answer would be to say that vitriol dissolves old life in order to create new life. So let's look at the art card and see where that new life is going to come from. First of all, notice that the figures in the forefront of the card are positioned before a huge golden egg. Now this is, of course, the Orphic egg, and everything we see happening in front of the egg is actually the secret work that is being done inside. Shimmering around the egg as if to advertise the radiant life within is a golden aura displaying in beautiful penmanship the alchemical motto, and I'm just going to say the English version of it, which means visit the interior parts of the earth. By rectification thou shalt find the hidden stone. I can't say Latin very well. It's like visita interiore or interiora terrae rectificando invenius occultum lapidum. Visit the interior parts of the earth. By rectification thou shalt find the hidden stone. So cooking up the potion that is making that visit possible is a strange and wonderful being whom we first met as two characters in a 2/6 The Lover's card of Crowley's deck, which we haven't looked at yet. But that card will show the Black King and White Queen having now merged and become a single character with two heads. The White Bride in the Lover's card now has black hair and wears the golden crown, and the Black Groom now has golden hair and wears a silver crown in the Lover's card, which we don't have pulled up. You'll see this later. And he goes on to talk about the Lover's card, and I don't want to get into it and give that away just yet, but they make a pretty dramatic change in the Lover's card as well. The lion has turned white, and the eagle is now red, having transmuted to their opposite characters by the dual baptism of fire and water, the union of the white and red tinctures. So at the very bottom of the card, the fire and the water exist together in harmony. Crowley writes this: "This is only a crude symbol of the spiritual idea, which is the satisfaction of the desire of the incomplete element of one kind to satisfy its formula by assimilation of its equal and opposite." And Lanmala Duquette says this in short: "Now I understand for many readers of my book, these forays into the strange and abstruse world of alchemy may seem like unwelcome detours from the subject of the tarot, but they are, however, Crowley's forays, and they are an important aspect of the Thoth tarot, and they set it apart from the more traditional decks. The alchemical aspects of the Thoth tarot are implicit in the fundamental structure of the tarot itself. Indeed, until Lon became familiar with the alchemical processes Crowley introduced in the Book of Thoth, he had no idea why the original title of the Temperance or Art card was called the Daughter of the Reconcilers, or the Bringer Forth of Life." So remember, too, that we, in Crowley's deck, we skipped a 215, the Devil, because that was the first one that we did in this series. So if you're doing this in order, you should have went back to the beginning and looked at the Devil card. All right. So now it's pretty much, here's where it lies on the tree. See it in blue there. We'll put an arrow there, I guess, if you want, so you can see it better. This is the path that, look at that big old arrow the Temperance card resides on. That is a humongous arrow. All right, so what does Wang have to say? I'm going to save Paul Foster Case for last, because I think Case is the best one on this card too, in my opinion. So this is actually the path of Samek. All right, Temperance, the 14th key. Path color is blue. The related sound is G sharp. Its sign that it corresponds to a Sagittarius, or a mutable fire. Its esoteric meaning means to prop up, or tent peg, or prop. The simple letter meaning is anger, and the esoteric title is the Daughter of the Reconcilers, the Bringer Forth of Life. And on the 32 paths of wisdom, the 25th path is the intelligence of probation, or is a tentative. It's so called because it is the primary temptation by which the Creator trieth all righteous persons. So remember, it's the 14th key in the tarot, but the 25th path in the 32 paths of wisdom. So we know we're going to get tested here, right? The path of Samek, Temperance, leads from Yesod to Tifereth, from the moon to the sun, from the personality to the higher self. It is among the most important and difficult paths of the entire tree, and one on which the very enormity of the great work may be experienced. It's been called a path which is the dark night of the soul, a path on which one enters a deep tunnel in the belief that the light is to be found at the end of it. This is a path of trial and temptation, called the intelligence of probation. It is also known as the Daughter of the Reconcilers, or the Bringer Forth of Life. In his 777, Crowley made this comment on the letter Samek. It is, quote, the womb preserving life, self-control, and self-sacrifice that govern the wheel. All these phrases direct us to the idea that behind this card ultimately is the Great Mother, the Yod He Vav He Elohim, so to speak, of Bina. For this reason, the central figure of both the Golden Dawn and Crowley cards are female, and moreover, the 25th path is that of Sagittarius the Archer, who is also Diana the Huntress, goddess of the moon. This repeats the principle that all of the figures of the tarot, except the Fool, are Mother Bina and Father Chokmah under different guises. So where is Mother? So remember, let me get some circles going here. Maybe. There we go. So remember, at the top of the tree, everything emanates from the first supernal, right? Everything. This is Mother Bina, that Saturnian energy, or Bina. And this is Father Chokmah, just the fixed zodiac, or not the fixed zodiac, but the zodiac, all the constellations and everything. So the most powerful part of the tree, everything emanates from source, and then these two energies of Father, Mother, Alpha, Omega. Like he was stating before, this is since here in Yesod is the moon, and here in Tiferet is the sun energy. We're going from the moon to the sun, right? So hopefully we've learned all we need to know about these lower paths down here. And now we're being initiated into here, which is a big deal. We're being initiated into this phase. So naturally there's going to be some testing that goes on. I believe in the Golden Dawn and this phase of the initiations, this would be called Portal, where you get initiated into the inner mysteries. All right. So this repeats the principle, again, that all the figures of the tarot, except the Fool, are Mother Bina and Father Chokmah under different guises. In her function as Diana, she governs the tides of earth and the fluctuations of the astral current. She's the natural framework and support for the waxing and waning of the energies of existence. She is the prop, the very meaning of the word Samek. The Great Mother is thus the womb preserving life. She is restriction and control over natural energies. All of the energies of the manifest universe are controlled and manipulated within specific bounds and restrictions. Remember that. All of the energies of the manifest, especially the physical universe, are controlled and manipulated within specific bounds, rules, and restrictions. So, in their Voice of Isis, Harriet and Homer Curtis described the Universal Mother as the, quote, power of bringing forth in humanity the divine child, or the Christ. It is that which in every individual brings about the contact of the personality with the inner divine light. This, in Kabbalistic terms, is the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Rising on the path of temperance leads to our bearing of the child, which is ourselves reborn. So key 14 is the beginning of an awareness of the higher self of Tiferet. The card demonstrates not the experience itself, but how the experience is brought about through an exchange and a balance of opposites, which can only be symbolically described. The use of symbols here has nothing whatsoever to do with secrecy, but is merely reflective of the inadequacy of language to describe the process, which is going to be hard for me to do as well, because this card is definitely about the experience of the test that happens. Crowley's card is the most specific. We'll go back to Crowley's card. We'll see what Wang has to say about Crowley's card here. So Crowley's card is the most specific, showing the process in alchemical terms, where fire becomes water and water becomes fire. And as we appreciate that the primary alchemy takes place within the body of the alchemist itself, primary alchemy takes place within the body of the alchemist, We can also appreciate that this card is describing an actual physical effect. It's not nearly so symbolic as some might believe. The willful interchange of fire and water is the merging or tempering of energy opposites within the body, here symbolized by a stream poured back and forth from one vase to another. This is the living water, consciousness vivified by being merged with the fiery spirit. The process is one of bringing the spirit into the body so that it tempers the consciousness and is itself tempered by consciousness, thus forming something new, something which is more than the sum of its parts. This is the personal application of the yod fire and the hay water, uniting in the individual to produce vav, air, within the body, which is hay, the final earth. So yod fire, hay water, those unite, they produce vav, the air, within the body, which is the final hay of earth. And you can see that. And let me see if I can find it here. Not the colored worlds. So there we go. I got it. Primal fire, primal water. Right, you combine those two and you get Yetzirah or air. And then these three create the manifest, earth. Remember a lot of Hebrews from right to left. The process involves an inner manipulation of sexual energies. So indeed, the symbolism of the arrow released upward is one of spiritual orgasm. Such an interpretation may appear extreme, but it's actually well accepted in Christian iconography. The ecstasy of Teresa, the 16th century mystic and saint, is described as an angel thrusting a flaming arrow into her heart. This symbolism of the piercing arrow, which brings ecstasy and enlightenment, appears to be a universally applicable, indeed archetypal, description of a real process. Got a little tongue twisted there. So what happens is the establishment of a rhythmic, I'm going to use a phrase that can describe it, a rhythmic masturbatory motion of inner energy, so to speak. So you're establishing a rhythmic masturbatory motion of inner energy. The mental control of this energy, its conscious manipulation, is symbolized by the interchange of fire and water, or by the interchange of fluid between vases. The key to this actually simple process is the infinity symbol, the figure 8, which Waite uses above the figure of the magician. It's an ebb and flow which is confined. For example, it's used within very specific perimeters, thus the womb symbolism, but which is taken in either direction at will. As one changes the rate of vibration of this inner energy, one raises or lowers the level of consciousness, or it moves from chakra to chakra, or from, on the tree, path to path. To explain all of this in a more simple way, at the lowest level, water, which we have previously described as consciousness, being acted upon by fire, the sexual kundalini energy, produces the images of the astral, the pictures which form in our minds. And these are the Vav air quality, as our minds are the grounding earth. The principle is one of producing a consciously controlled vision, one which is limited by the will. The important point to understand is that most of the word symbols of alchemy, Hermeticism, Kabbalah, etc., describe processes to which anybody can relate. They're neither remote nor complicated, especially at the level of Asaya, at the top level. And in some respects, this whole symbolic language has been totally superseded by the language of psychology as established by Carl Jung and others. So it should be added that the metals described in alchemical literature are the same as the 7 chakras of the Hindus, the 7 planets, and the sephira of the microprosopos. Remember the metals of alchemy, and I told you guys the second stage of the mysteries is what? Alchemy, right? So the 7 planets of the microprosopos are going to correspond. Well, actually, let me see if I can do a circle. Come on, circle. Going to correspond here. Figured this out yet. There, right there, the microprosopos. So here, Da'ath would be considered Saturn. Then you have the sun. Then you have, what are we talking about now? It just said Jupiter. Then you have Gedula Mars, Netzach, Venus, Ode Mercury, Yesod the moon. This looks absolutely crazy, but these are the 7 planets on the tree. And I'm sure all of you guys have seen the 7 planets on the chakra system. The metals that they correspond with, too. And alchemy. So, again, it should be added that the metals described in alchemical literature are the same as the 7 chakras of the Hindus, the 7 planets, and the 7 sephira of the microprosopos. These words have been used as codes over the centuries, meaning 7 distinct levels of objective consciousness. Thus, when one speaks of a planet ruling a sign of the zodiac, what is meant is the relationship of a sign to a given center of energy, both in the greater universe and in the human body. So Sagittarius is the sign of the zodiac related to temperance. Its planetary ruler is Jupiter, meaning the blue sphere of Chesed on the tree, but also, to some extent, the Wheel of Fortune, or the 10th key of the tarot. So Chesed, and I'll show you guys where that is too, in case you forgot. That's right. Am I on arrows? Right there. That's Chesed. Chesed is suggested by the blue-colored robe worn by the Golden Dawn angel, the color of the 25th path in Absoluth. On the figure's breast is a golden square. All right, so we need to move to Wang's card because you can't see that. There you go. This is his card. The person that I'm reading now, this is his card, okay? He made it. There's no other meanings than what he's telling you here. On the figure's breast is a golden square, a further reference to Chesed, to the number 4, and to matter. In the weight card, the square is covered by a triangle. See? Where's the triangle at? Right there? Bonk. So. In the weight card, the square is covered by a triangle, meaning that all of the manifest universe is governed by the supernals. Here we recall that Chesed is the architect of all manifestation, working with the pure potential to form of Bina. So what does that mean? I'll show you. So all of the everything is under the energies of the supernal, right? The supernals, first supernals or whatever. So everything is under the energy of this. Things don't even start becoming manifest yet. So you've got source, alpha, omega, source, mother, father, source, king, queen, whatever you want to call it, okay? Once it gets to Chesed, this is where the architect, so-called architect of the universe, whatever you want to call it, architect. This is where the big designs, the vision of the design of the entire creation sets about it, where it starts to become architectural energy. Because we know through emanation it does what? It emanates this way. Ding, 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 right? That's how it emanates. The energies emanate according to the philosophy of the Hermetic Kabbalah. We're just talking about Chesed right here. So Chesed is suggested by the blue-colored robe worn by the Golden Dawn, the color of the 25th path in Absoluth. One figure's breast is a golden square, a further reference to Chesed, to the number 4, and to matter. In the weight card, remember the square is covered by a triangle, meaning that all of the manifest universe is governed by that first supernal. And so here we recall that Chesed is the architect of all manifestation, working with pure potential to form of Bina. So to reiterate the important meanings of temperance, it refers to the or an actual physical process, one which has been the secret of mystics for centuries. This process involves an interchange of opposite energies directed by the will. The process is set in motion at the level of the higher self. It is instituted in Chesed, the most refined level of the microprosopos, to which the higher self is central, and the Sephra, where the will to form of the Great Mother is enacted. Until this process is accomplished, the higher self cannot be known to the personality. So if this is the Great Mother, right, all three of these, by the way, Sephra up here at the top and the supernal reside in this energy of the black sphere, right? And now it goes to Chesed to bring about the will of this energy. Hope you're smelling what I'm stepping in here. The whole experience is one of preparation of the personality and the body in which it is operating to deal with an influx of light, which would be devastating to a system unready to handle such energy. Now, remember, if you listen to the radio broadcast, we had a caller call in. His name is Corey, Conscious Corey. That's his name. And he talked about a Kundalini awakening, which was intense. He thought he was going crazy, all kinds of stuff. You have to listen to it. He also explains what happens to a body that's not prepared for something like this. Now, this is a real thing, whether people want to admit it or not, I don't care. But if a body's not ready for it, crazy things can happen. He even says people that say they want a Kundalini awakening, if they're not ready for it, I don't recommend trying to force it to happen because it's scary, it's dangerous, that kind of thing. The whole experience is one of preparation of the personality and the body in which it is operating to deal with an influx of light, which would be devastating to a system unready to handle that energy. So most important here is the monitoring of progress, the continual testing from above. It is the angel here, which is at once the higher self and the initiatory forces of nature, which pours the elixir from vase to vase. And this is an ongoing process of testing, measuring to see how much the physical vehicle can bear. When it can handle the stress of the energy interchange here symbolized, the arrow is released. And on the other hand, the angel makes certain that no individual is allowed more than it can handle. The result of taking on too much at once is an admonishing jolt from this angel, not soon to be forgotten. The angels described as sentinels at each inner gate are there for our own protection. Some special insights may be derived by considering the description of the letter Samech in the Sefer Yetzirah. Although the terms in this document lend themselves to an extraordinary range of interpretation, the word anger is referred to Samech. However, Paul Foster Case states that this is a blind, and that the original meaning of the Hebrew word was quivering or vibration, not anger. And such an interpretation is entirely consistent with the alchemical symbolism for the interchange of fire and water, which is a control of inner vibrations. But there are two other meanings of anger, which might be appropriate to this path. First is the idea of anger in the sense of divine rage, a passion so overwhelming that its force draws the bow and releases the arrow of Sagittarius on the middle pillar. Second is an aspect of the mysteries only rarely discussed, and certainly, I guess, weird to the 25th path, or he says germane here, but this is the very real hostility often felt by the student towards the path itself as he works day after day and seems to be getting nowhere. So you guys remember this. If you're doing spiritual work, now there's just like there's three different levels to the mysteries, there's three different levels that this work works on. It does work on the body, actual energy and everything too. But spiritually, you get tested as well, consciously. That's the water, remember? So if you're growing spiritually and you're growing the way you're supposed to, you're going to get tested. It's just a part of this thing is testing you. So sometimes we go through stuff in life where the same thing keeps happening over and over again, and we start to feel like we're cursed or whatever. It just seems like we're getting nowhere. But this is just a test. This creates what? Like the anger and frustration sometimes. Now, such hostility and frustration is in itself a major test. It is a part and parcel of the work prior to the emergence of inner proofs. The anger, if it may be called, that is dispelled along this path as the spirit begins to fill the vessel in which the elements have been purified to receive. The relationship of this path to the three others provides one of the best interlocks of Kabbalistic symbolism for the combined letters of the three lowest paths, Kaf, Shin, and Tav, spell the Hebrew word for bow. You know that? Kaf, Shin, and Tav spell the Hebrew word for bow. So the actual paths that we've already studied on the tree, Kaf, the moon, Shin, judgment, and check this out, Tav, the world or the universe, that actually spells in Hebrew bow. And where's the arrow released? Right here. Crazy, huh? Pretty cool, though. The same word also means rainbow, which is another recurring symbol in the tarot. Now, these three paths are the forces which, when combined, send the arrow skyward towards Tifereth. These are the three minor tests prior to the major testing of temperance. And to even approach the 25th path, one must have begun to temper the water of the moon with the fire of judgment and ground the interchange of the path of the universe. This works, or this is cool, but this work is suggested in the universe by the bipolar rods carried by the central figure. Remember, in the universe card or the world card, especially in Paul Foster Case, you can see those rods, the bipolar rods carried by the figure. Now, the Golden Dawn and Weight cards are very similar in their symbolism, both following tradition very closely. The Golden Dawn vases are red and blue. Let me pull that card up. I'm opening stuff on my computer, hitting wrong buttons here. There we go. The Golden Dawn vases are red and blue to symbolize an interchange between opposite energies, Chokma and Bina, and their Atziluth colors. Now, the vases on the Weight card are gold to show that all of this is an operation of the sun. Oh, get rid of that arrow so you can see the gold vases. Looks like the sun on the head of the angel there, too, or the sign of the sun. Or what? Tifereth, right? That planet is also represented by the sign on the angel's forehead and by the sphere above the Golden Dawn's angel's head. So back to the Golden Dawn card. You see the sun above this one's head up there? In both cases, also, the angel has one foot on solid water and the other on land, meaning solid matter and fluid consciousness. The water is somewhat representative of Yesod, the lower source of this path, the foundation, which is the source of the dualities of our sensory condition and which controls their ebb and flow. These are the opposites which we seek to manipulate through the conscious use of the solar fire, shown in the background as a flaming volcano. Now, Crowley's symbolism is at once more complicated and more explicit, although the meaning of the card, which he calls art, is precisely the same as the others. Where is Crowley's card? There it is. And of those cards in which Crowley deviated radically from traditional design, this is one of the most successful. It graphically demonstrates complex and subtle principles only vaguely suggested by the Weight and Golden Dawn cards. Crowley points out in his Book of Thoth that this card is the complement and fulfillment of Key 6, Gemini, the lovers. It is the consummation of the royal marriage which took place in the Lover's card. It is the same formula, but in a more advanced stage. The original duality has been completely compensated, but after birth comes growth, after growth puberty, and after puberty purification. There is a perfect interchange. The alchemical red lion has become white, and the white lion has become red. Water is poured on fire, fire is merged with water, and all within a golden cauldron, which is understood to be the purified physical vehicle. It will be seen that a tiny arrow rises towards the breast of the figure, which are arranged in the form of the 6 planets of the microprosopos around the sun. Can you see that tiny arrow there? I would zoom in on it, but let me see if I can. My arrows are way too big here, by the way. So this little arrow right there is going into the 6 planets in the tree of the microprosopos surrounding the central sun. There's an arrow, right there on the middle of that dress, so to speak. So it'll be seen that a tiny arrow rises towards the breast of the figure, which are arranged in the form of the 6 planets of the microprosopos around the sun. And moreover, the method of successfully treading this path is cryptically given in the Latin inscription around the figure. Again, I'm going to say this probably wrong. Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenius occultum lapidum, which means visit the interior parts of the earth. By rectification thou shalt find the hidden stone. This stone, sometimes referred to as the philosopher's stone, is the ultimate goal of alchemy and the alchemist. Now, obviously, it would be impossible to expand here on the system of alchemy and the great work to which Crowley refers, but it must, however, be added that Crowley's use of alchemical symbolism has some rather private meaning specific to his system. Just like in the Tower, he mentions that there is a special secret here, known to the 9th initiates of the OTO, and one which readers will not be surprised to discover is again blatantly sexual. In his book, Sexuality, Magic, and Perversion, Francis King explains a code in which the sexual techniques of the OTO were described, and this code was drawn from the traditional teachings or traditional technical terminology of alchemy. The penis was referred to as Athenor, the semen as the serpent or occasionally the blood of the red lion, while the vagina was called the circubite or the retort. The secretions that lubricate the vagina were called the menstruum of the gluten, sometimes abbreviated to the menstruum, and the mixture of the semen with the vaginal lubricant was termed the first matter, or when supposedly transmuted by the magical powers of the participants in the rite, the amrita or elixir. So the initiates of the 9th degree claim that success in almost any magical operation, from the invocation of a god to procuring a great treasure, could be achieved by the application of the appropriate sexual technique. Of course, they did. I'm not going to tell you what that is like that, but I can tell you that you can look it up and find it. To some of you, it may be disgusting, and I get it. But the key here is really understanding. I guess if you want to know what it actually is, just message me or I'll tell you, DM me if you're in the Discord or whatever. But the key here is like understanding the bigger meanings and the symbols of all this stuff. This alchemical process between the consciousness of water and the spirit of fire, the will of fire, or the forces between masculine and feminine, or this inner kind of what they called masturbatory work of these energies can seem what? It creates a vibration. It creates anger. It creates all kinds of stuff. I hope you're getting what I'm putting down here. You get tested. And not only on a physical level, but like I said, even spiritually. Like if you find yourself, getting tested by the same things over and over again, this is also part of the work. This stuff happens on many levels. It's not just polar. It's not just in the body. It's not just in the mind. It's in the mind, body, and soul. You're going to get tested on all of this. So to the master teacher here, in my opinion, on this card, we're going to go to Paul Foster Case. I don't know why. Like the higher up in the tarot I get on the tree, the more I like Paul Foster Case's teachings for some reason. But so his correspondences are all the same. It's temperance. The Roman number is, what is my Roman numerals here? 14th, because it's the 14th key. The Hebrew letter is Samek. The value in letter is S, or the numerical value of 60. The meaning of this, according to Case, is tent peg, prop, or support. The Kabbalistic intelligence is the intelligence of probation or trial, the power aspect of consciousness, or the verification or the law of probation. In astrology, it corresponds to Sagittarius. The human faculty, again, is anger or wrath. The color is blue, and the note is G sharp. The path on the tree is Tiferet to Yesod. The cube of space is west, on the west side of the cube, above. In alchemy, or metal alchemy, it's the process of incineration. The Hebrew letter Samek, pronounced Sa-mek, means a verb, to prop, to bear up, to establish, uphold, sustain. As a noun, it means a tent peg, which makes firm the tent or dwelling place. Both as a verb and a noun, its meanings are closely allied to the principle of verification, which is the keynote of this lesson. Most of the instruction you've been given thus far consists of theory. This is an essential part of your training because it is an occult maxim that the pupil must be grounded in theory before he can begin to practice. It is necessary for you to learn the terms, the alphabet, so to speak, in which your working instructions are written. Nevertheless, these theories must be established and supported. That means they must be verified before they can become a part of your working equipment. They must be tried. Their temper must be tested to the utmost. Application, practical application, is the touchstone by which all knowledge must be tested. Amen to that. I'd like to get that tattooed across my freaking chest. Application is the touchstone by which all knowledge must be tested. This point is precisely where the teaching you are now receiving and will receive differs from any other systems of occult instruction. It's practical. You'll be given very precise and exact directions how to apply these theories so that you'll be able to judge for yourself their value. And already you've made a start if you faithfully carried out the exercises given in his books. They are made chiefly with a view to shaping your attitudes towards yourself and your brothers and sisters here on earth, since a realization of the nature and true unity of all mankind is an absolute essential for this practice of magic in its true and higher forms. So according to Paul Foster Case, your attitude towards you and all your brothers and sisters on earth is the realization of the nature and true unity of all mankind, and that is an absolute essential thing for the successful practice of magic in its truest and highest form. So although they are intended to accustom yourself to linking up the various ideas depicted by the tarot keys, both with each other and with your experience of life, you have to see one thing clearly in this connection, however. The foregoing does not simply mean that you will be given a set of directions that will at once enable you to practice magic. The art consists of the transformation of your personality and the raising and expanding of your consciousness until you perceive clearly and at first hand the laws whereby you operate. The great trial and testing is a trial and testing of yourself. The tarot represents your states of consciousness. The principles it depicts are the principles that govern your life, which emanate from the one identity, which is your innermost self. And I'm saying that because he's underlining those things. So consequently, the letter Samek represents the trial, the probation, the purging and purification of your personality, that it may be, in time, become a fit channel for the expression of the one force, a fit temple of the Most High, a pure and holy habitation for spirit. Only thus does the law of verification bring about the establishment or foundation of the house of God. As you progress with your studies and perform the practical work given to you, you are at the same time undergoing the subtle tests that prove your fitness to carry out the great work. See to it that you take this work seriously. You have announced yourself as a candidate for truth, have you not? Truth will be revealed to you when you have proved yourself worthy of it. The earnestness which you apply yourself to this preliminary instruction is your first test. The Book of Tokens says, quote, "Thus am I as one who testeth gold in a furnace, and this aspect of my being presenteth to the unrighteous a face of wrath." Wrath corresponding with this card. Yet by the purgation, or the purgation, that's purgation, I guess. The purging, I hate that word. Yet by the purging of fire, do I uphold and sustain thee in every moment of thy life. Behold, I am he who trieth thee with many subtle tests. And wise art thou if thou knowest that the subtle serpent of temptation is in truth the anointed one who bringeth these to liberation. Note that this quotation refers to wrath and to a serpent. Both of these are closely connected with the letter Samek and the underlying meaning of this key and this card. In key 8, we see the serpent coiled, symbolized by the letter Tet. In key 11, we see in the letter Lamed the serpent uncoiled and active, its head erect and its tail pointing downward and to the left. The letter Samek shows the completion of the upward movement of the tail towards the serpent's mouth and is therefore a reversal of the symbolism of Tet. In other words, Tet shows the serpent power as it is before it comes under control. Lamed shows it at the halfway stage of our mastery over it, and Samek shows the result of perfect control. The serpent biting its own tail has long been a symbol of eternity and of wisdom. It suggests circular movement by its shape, which establishes a connection between this key and key 10, to which Jupiter is attributed. The noun for wrath in Hebrew also means vibration. This refers to the serpent power, which is the vibratory state in its activity. It is the desire force, which is the energizing principle behind all of our activities, and this force can be terribly destructive when it's not under control. We talked about that in the Tower card, hence fully justifying the use of the word wrath in connection with it. Yet, it is the power that leads to freedom, the force that always destroys limitations and impediments to free expression. It is really the tempering or the harmonizing power that gets rid of discord and impurity. It is terrible to the objects of its disintegrating activity, but the wise perceive its beneficent purpose. So just because, and that's another thing too, like sometimes when we're doing our spiritual work, towers fall, shit happens in our life, and we think, oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, whatever. But there could be a testing and a tempering going on, getting you ready for something too. Always remember that. Don't give into it and go backwards and start becoming the victim. Keep your vibration high. The number 14 represents the principle of 4, reason, expressing itself through the agency of 1, which is concentration. The verification of the hypotheses arrived at by the use of reason is carried out by means of concentration. And remember again, the concentration is the focusing of the vibratory activity at the definite point by means of attention. Any of us out-of-body travelers know that. We have to relax and then focus and concentrate while super relaxed. It's kind of hard, but it leads to what? A vibratory state that all of a sudden, boop, our Yetziratic or astral body pops out. Weird how that works, right? The digits of 14, 1 and 4 add to 5, which is the Hierophant. Thus we arrive at the conclusion and verification, or that verification is also arrived at by following carefully the instructions imparted by the, quote, still small voice of intuition. 5 is also the number of adaptation and desire. It is the proper adaptation of the tremendous force of desire through intelligent control that results in the attainment of the higher consciousness, and it is the process of adaptation that constitutes most of the tests that you'll be called upon to meet, to control your desire force, to concentrate. The key to this idea lies in the word, or in the world spelt DBCH, which has a numerical value use of 14, which means sacrifice. Sacrifice. Remember that. Nobody ever attained perfection without sacrifice. To be sure, he who knows the value of his objective feels no sense of loss in ridding himself of all encumbrances which prevent his progress, to sacrifice all things that prevent your progress. So in earlier stages of the work, one is often called upon to make decisions which appear to involve sacrifice. And people that don't want to sacrifice those things have to, I guess they fail, But experience demonstrates the error of such appearances, for it shows that every bit of intelligent elimination makes possible the expression of a greater degree of power. But at first the test is difficult to meet. Many, indeed, fail to do so, and they are the ones who are readiest to assert that there is nothing in the promise of ageless wisdom. They call ageless wisdom BS. There's nothing there. And they will always say that when the sacrifice comes up. Of course, there is not for them. There never will be to anyone who doesn't have the courage to face periods of discouragement, nor the burning zeal and fiery rebellion against the limitation and bondage of this world that enables them to carry on against all odds. You must be filled with the intense, one-pointed desire to demonstrate by actual experience that you're really what every one of these lessons have been declaring you are in your truest, innermost nature. The zodiacal sign Sagittarius is attributed to key 14. It has essentially the same meaning as the intense, one-pointed desire spoken of in the preceding paragraph. It means archer, and its symbol is an arrow. It is a sign of the fiery triplicity, Leo and Aries being the other two. This sign is ruled by the planet Jupiter, and this, of course, refers to the cyclic, rhythmic motion by which the vibratory activity manifests itself. A little meditation will reveal other reasons for this attribution, though. But the title temperance does not refer to the meaning in common use. It's to be understood in its ancient signification as the act of tempering or mixing. The object of tempering is to impart strength. It does this by properly mixing the opposite forces, that is, by applying the law of balance and equilibration. This is clearly shown in the symbolism of key 14. The angel here is Michael, angel of the sun and archangel of the element of fire. He is neither male nor female. The pronoun he is just used for convenience, nor is he a person. The angel is actually an impersonal force. On his brow is the solar symbol, and light radiates from his head. One foot rests in the water, symbol of the cosmic mind stuff, while the other is on land, symbol of concrete manifestation. He is the true inner self. On his white robe is the great name of YHVH written in Hebrew characters, which identifies him with the one reality, so to speak. The seven-pointed star is a figure that can only be drawn by actual experiment with a pair of compasses, for the regular heptagon from which it is derived is only not an equal divider of the 360 degrees of a circle, but regular heptagons do not occur spontaneously in nature. So thus the seven-pointed star is a work of man, the result of his development of skill and the use of tools. This suggests that the great work which completes the expression of nature's laws is an artistic adaptation of those laws by man, and not provided by their manifestation below the human level. In other words, although all human activity is a transformation of the one energy, it is only when that energy is transformed through human speech, thought, and action that fulfillment is even possible. The great art of the occultist requires the active energy of the human personality. The wings of the angel are fiery red with blue highlights to indicate the fiery quality of the sign Sagittarius and its color attribution, which is blue. The torch is a symbol of fire, and from it fall give yods upon an eagle. The yods refer to the 5 differentiations of the life breath into the 5 subtle principles of sensation. It's hard to see the yods, but they're right there, the 5 yods. So there's the Yod He Vav He, there's the 7-pointed star, there's the 5 yods, there's the sun. Remember what we said about the rainbow earlier? The eagle is a symbol of water because it is connected with the watery sign Scorpio. One is the eagle, obviously it's that one. I hope. Yeah. Hence, the symbolism refers to the blending of opposites and the magical equilibrium which results. The vase is a symbol of the element of water, which flows from it in a double wavy stream on the head of a lion who represents Leo and the element of fire. Thus, the symbolism, while it represents the same blendings of opposites as does the other activity of the angel, is nevertheless opposite in its action. The rainbow represents the differentiation of vibratory activity of light into color by means of water. Color is a very potent means of bringing the activity of the life power into our field of operation, and it is by means of color that we are able to utilize the vibratory activity for the modification of external conditions. There he just gave you a key to ceremonial magic. Why does the Golden Dawn use flashing colors in their ceremonies and in their temples and all their stuff? Right there, here it is. The rainbow represents the differentiation of vibratory activity of light into color by means of water. Color is a very potent means of bringing the activity of the life power into our field of operation, and it is by means of color that we are able to utilize the vibratory activity for the modification of external conditions. The subject will be treated more extensively in later instructions of magic when you will receive many exercises in its practical application. The path rises between the twin mount peaks of wisdom and understanding, and ends beneath the crown of the primal will. This symbolism refers to the Kabbalistic diagram of the tree of life, which is really a symbol of the divine man. This week, test yourself in various ways. Test yourself with regard to your own earnestness in this work and philosophy. Ask yourself such questions like, does my belief actually support me in the various crises of my daily existence? If not, then what does? Does it promote my mental, physical, and spiritual unfoldment? Am I any better for it? Is this belief that I carry and this act that I'm doing, is it transmuting the base metals of my personality into the gold of real attainment? Are my desires becoming pure, my mental processes clear, my intuition being sharpened? If not, am I applying myself to the work as earnestly as I could be? Am I doing it as earnestly as I feel that I should in order to give it a real testing? It cannot be too often repeated that the ageless wisdom is not a creed, it's not a system of beliefs, not an escape from reality into a mirage of glittering generalities. It's not a doctrine that puts all verification of its fundamentals aside until after death. Plainly and specifically, the ageless wisdom, it declares that its fundamental laws have been matters of experience for men and women of other days who are revered as leaders and teachers of mankind. And just as plainly and specifically, it avers that such experience is not a miracle, it's not miraculous, but it can be repeated as to its fundamentals by anyone who is willing to undertake the training of the body and mind that makes it possible. And it warns all who approach even the beginnings of the path of attainment that it is not for cowards, not for the lukewarm, not for triflers. To the courageous, the zealous, the persevering, it offers evidence that admits of it no denial. It points out the way of attainment of first-hand knowledge and shows how to follow that way. Nevertheless, it steadfastly refuses to communicate the higher aspects of that knowledge to those who have not made ready their bodies and their minds for such communication. Or it might be better to say, it never attempts the impossible feat of transmitting to those who are not ready prepared, and anything which requires such preparation for its adequate reception and appreciation. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is temperance. The test, the big testing, is what I call it. And you know, in a practical sense of the word, I'll say this again. Yes, the teachings of the mixtures of the energies and all the stuff is there. Remember, like there's a truth that can happen on 3 levels here in this card. Mind, body, and spirit. But if you find yourself being tested over and over again, sometimes like you're getting nowhere, you might actually be getting somewhere. You just don't know it. You know, you have to persevere. Another book that if you're, in my opinion, if you want to understand what's going on here, a small book, and I also read this on the air. It's called What the Ancient Wisdom Expects from Its Disciples by Manly P. Hall. I would check that one out too. All right, cool. So now that we're up in the tree, we're around the Tifrith. We've graduated into the alchemical stage of the higher self. And so things are getting a bit more interesting. See you on the next card in the next path.